In the deep cold of space, the alien warlords moved across the stars with fleets that swallowed light, with weapons that shattered moons and burned the seas of planets. They came to Earth expecting silence, expecting fear, expecting the surrender they had seen on 1,000 other worlds. Their ships hovered over cities, casting shadows that blocked the sun. Their voices thundered through the skies, telling humans to kneel, telling them to accept the rule of the apex predators. But what the aliens did not understand was that Earth was a world that had learned to survive storms, to survive war, to survive pain. Humans had fought each other in trenches and jungles, deserts and frozen lands. They had spilled blood for freedom, for pride, for the hope of a better dawn. And when the aliens came with their cold demand, the humans did not lower their heads. They looked to the sky with defiance in their eyes and the fire of rage in their hearts. They did not see conquerors, they saw invaders that needed to be stopped. They saw an enemy that believed itself to be untouchable, and that belief would be their weakness because humans had learned how to fight with nothing but the dirt under their boots and the breath in their lungs. The aliens began their assault, believing the humans would scatter. They rained plasma fire on cities. They tore apart defenses with precision weapons. They unleashed warriors in dark armor who moved like shadows and struck with blades that burned. But the humans did not break. They rallied in the streets, in the burning ruins. They fought with rifles older than the invaders themselves. They fought with knives and fists and the unshakable will to defend their home. They set traps in alleys and collapsed buildings. Onto alien patrols, they ambushed enemy convoys using rooftops and underground tunnels, turning the cities into labyrinths of resistance. Every street became a battlefield, every house a fortress, every family a reason to keep fighting. The aliens watched with confusion as humans who lost everything continued to fight, as civilians joined the resistance, as children carried messages through the rubble, and engineers turned scrap metal into weapons. They saw a species that adapted to every strike, a species that used every defeat to learn, every setback to grow stronger. And they began to realize that this world would not fall as easily as the others. The humans began to capture alien tech, pulling apart weapons and systems, learning how they worked, turning the enemy's power against them. They learned how to block alien sensors, how to hack their drones, how to blind their satellites. They fought in the shadows, striking at alien patrols and vanishing before reinforcements arrived, hitting supply lines and communication towers. Every move calculated, every strike fueled by a promise to protect their home. The aliens, who once believed they ruled the stars, began to see the humans as something else, something they had never faced before. Not prey, not subjects, but fighters who would rather die than bow. And in that moment the first crack appeared in the empire that had never known fear, and for the first time, the aliens felt it. The aliens regrouped above Earth, black ships shifting in orbit like predators in the dark, waiting for the moment to strike again. They sent new waves of warriors down through the clouds, warriors with glowing blades and armor that pulsed with cold light. They moved in squads, silent and confident, sweeping through the wreckage of human cities, scanning for signs of resistance, expecting humans to hide in fear. But humans did not hide. They learned the alien patrol patterns, learned the timing of their drones, learned the weak points in their armor. And when the aliens moved through the ruined streets, humans struck with rifles and grenades, with homemade explosives and ambushed tactics learned from centuries of fighting on every type of battlefield. The aliens found themselves under attack from rooftops and alleys, from beneath the ground and from hidden snipers in the shadows. Every street corner became a kill zone, every building a sniper nest, every piece of rubble a potential trap. As the aliens advanced, the humans retreated only to circle around and strike again, using hit-and-run tactics that wore down even the most advanced squads. The aliens began to lose soldiers, warriors who had never known defeat, falling to human traps and human precision, to human rage and human determination. The alien commanders watched the losses on their cold screens, trying to understand why these humans refused to surrender, why they fought with such desperation and fury. And the answer was written in the eyes of every fighter. It was written in the screams of every mother who lost a child, in the quiet vows of soldiers who carried the names of the fallen. It was written in the blood on the streets that became sacred ground to those who refused to kneel. The aliens tried to use fear. They executed prisoners on live feeds. They burned entire districts, hoping to break the spirit of those who resisted. But every act of terror turned into fuel for the fight. Every execution became a rallying cry. Every burning city became a promise that the humans would not stop until they won. The humans learned to fight in teams. moving with signals and hand gestures, communicating with old radios and hacked alien channels. They began to coordinate their attacks, taking out key alien positions, seizing alien supply drops, turning alien technology against them using captured energy weapons and armor. Pieced together from the remains of fallen enemies, they moved at night, using the darkness to their advantage, hitting alien patrols when they least expected it, vanishing into the shadows before reinforcements could arrive, leaving behind burning wreckage and fallen invaders. The aliens began to see the humans in their dreams, in the flashes of plasma fire, in the shadows of burning cities, and for the first time they felt what it was like to be hunted. The Empire had come to Earth expecting to conquer it with ease, to add another world to their collection, but they found humans who refused to be conquered, humans who turned pain into power, who turned fear into courage, and who fought with the certainty that freedom was worth any price. And in the cold, dark silence between battles, the aliens began to question if they had made a mistake. They began to question if they had found the one world that would never bow. The alien commanders decided to escalate the war, believing that total destruction would bring humanity to its knees. They brought down ships that could burn entire regions in moments. Ships that carried plasma cannons that turned steel into rivers of glowing metal and concrete into clouds of dust. They targeted the resistance strongholds, the cities that continued to fight, the mountains where soldiers hid and prepared. They burned forests and lakes. They turned farmland into ash, believing that starvation would end the human will to fight. But they did not understand that every flame they unleashed became a promise to fight harder, that every life they took became a seed of rage that grew in the hearts of those left behind. They did not see that humanity had survived ice ages, floods, endless wars, and they would survive this too. The aliens destroyed homes, but they could not destroy the spirit of humans who built barricades from rubble, who turned burned cars into cover, and who carried on fighting even with nothing but ash in their lungs and blood on their hands. They saw children carrying water to fighters. They saw old men teaching the young how to fix broken weapons, how to lay traps, how to move unseen. They saw women who had lost everything leading squads into the fire, with eyes that promised the aliens would pay for every life taken. The aliens learned that every act of terror became a spark for resistance, that the more they tried to crush humanity, the stronger humanity became. The humans began to study the patterns of the alien attacks, learning how the ships moved, how the plasma cannons charged, how the scouts marked targets before the bombardment. Humans used that knowledge to create diversions, to lure alien attacks away from civilian zones, to set traps that turned bombardments into ambushes for alien ground forces who landed expecting broken fighters and found themselves surrounded by soldiers who had been waiting for them. Humans learned how to strike the engines of the alien walkers, how to overload the energy packs of the alien weapons, using scraps of wire and stolen power cells to turn the invaders' own technology into bombs. They fought with captured rifles and blades made from alien alloys. They fought with drones hacked to deliver explosives under the alien machines. They fought with fury and silence, with the shadows as allies and the rubble as shields. The aliens watched as their squads disappeared into the night, as their patrols were found burning, as their soldiers who once walked with confidence began to hesitate, began to fear the dark. They saw that the humans were everywhere, and nowhere, striking without warning, and leaving only the promise that they would return. The aliens realized that the war was not just about territory, it was about survival, it was about pride, it was about freedom, and the humans would not give any of those without a fight. And in the silence of their command rooms on their cold ships high above the burning cities, the alien leaders began to feel doubt for the first time in their long reign. They wondered if they had underestimated the will of humanity, and they began to realize that fear was no longer their weapon but the price they would pay for what they started. The aliens attempted to break the human resistance by targeting what they believed was the heart of human strength: their connections to each other. They struck hospitals and shelters, believing that removing the wounded and the young would force humanity to surrender. They bombed food convoys and water supplies, hoping that desperation would turn humans against each other. But they did not understand that these attacks only forged stronger bonds among the survivors. For every shelter that fell, humans built two more hidden in the ruins. For every convoy destroyed, small groups risked their lives to carry supplies through broken streets under the glow of alien patrol lights. For every life taken, there were 10 more who picked up a rifle, who swore an oath to never stop fighting. The aliens saw the humans sharing the last pieces of bread, sharing water rationed drop by drop in underground tunnels, where children drew on walls to remember the world before the sky burned. The aliens watched the humans work together to build radio towers from scraps and wire, to keep communicating, to keep hope alive across the continents, even as alien jammers tried to silence them. Voices crackled through static, promising that the fight was not over, that help was coming, that the enemy was bleeding. To the aliens tried to control the narrative, sending false messages, promising safety if humans surrendered. But humans learned to see through the lies, learned to trust each other more than the enemy. They turned the alien propaganda against them, hacking broadcasts to show images of victories, to show captured alien equipment, to show that humans could win. The aliens saw their fallen soldiers dragged into the light not as trophies, but as proof that they were not invincible, and fear began to spread through the ranks of the invaders, who saw that every attempt to crush human unity only made it stronger. The aliens deployed elite squads, warriors, bred for combat, who had conquered countless worlds, but on Earth they found themselves fighting in the sewers, in the forests, in the shattered remains of skyscrapers, against humans who knew the terrain, who used traps and sabotage, who fought with every ounce of strength and cunning, and refused to let fear take them. The aliens watched as their elite units failed, as their best soldiers vanished into ambushes, as their plans fell apart because humans adapted faster than the aliens could learn. They saw humans using captured alien armor painted with symbols of resistance, moving through the night like shadows, striking hard and disappearing before counterattacks arrived, turning the invaders' own tactics against them. The aliens began to fear the dark corners of cities, the silent forests, the blackened ruins where humans waited, and when the humans struck, they struck with a fury that came from every life, lost every home, burned every promise to protect their world. The aliens who had come to rule found themselves hunted by the very species they tried to dominate, and as their commanders watched reports of ambushes and sabotage, of growing resistance cells in places they thought secured, they began to realize that they had woken something in humanity that could never be put back to sleep. The humans were fighting for more than survival. They were fighting for the right to be free under their own sky, and that was a fight the aliens could not easily win. The aliens decided that if they could not break humanity with fear, they would break them with power. They brought down their largest warship, a fortress in the sky that blotted out the stars with its black hull and endless lights. Its engines roared like thunder as it descended over the largest human stronghold, casting shadows over the burning streets. While the humans watched from below, the aliens opened their heavy gates, releasing swarms of drones that rained down, scanning for life, firing plasma bolts that turned walls to ash as soldiers scrambled for cover and civilians hid in underground bunkers. But the humans were ready. They had been waiting for this moment. They let the drones come closer, letting them feel confident before unleashing hacked signals that turned some of the drones against each other, causing them to fire at their own lines in the confusion. Resistance fighters emerged from tunnels and collapsed buildings, carrying rifles and rocket launchers made from alien scraps. They moved in squads, covering each other, advancing through smoke and fire, striking at the drones and disappearing before counterstrikes could land. The aliens watching from the fortress above sent down elite hunters, creatures in black armor, taller than any human, with claws that could tear steel and weapons that could vaporize stone. But the humans had learned their weaknesses. They targeted the joints in their armor, used explosives to shatter their visors and strike at the soft flesh underneath. They used the ruins to their advantage, luring the hunters into traps, collapsing walls on them, setting fire to the ground with homemade fuel bombs. The aliens tried to bombard the fighters from above, but the humans moved too quickly, too unpredictably, and for every strike they made, the humans answered with another attack on their supply lines, another ambush on their patrols, another raid on their storage depots, taking food and weapons and leaving burning wreckage behind. The fortress above rumbled with frustration as its commanders watched wave after wave of their forces vanish into the fires of human resistance. They could see that humans were not fighting for orders or for control. They were fighting for each other, for the hope that their world would be free again, and that hope was a weapon stronger than any plasma cannon. The aliens began to notice that some of their own soldiers were hesitating, afraid to patrol alone, afraid of the whispers in the darkness that spoke of humans who moved like ghosts, striking and disappearing, afraid of the stories of human snipers who could put a bullet through a visor from a mile away, of engineers who could turn alien tech into bombs that destroyed entire squads. The aliens who once ruled the stars found themselves surrounded on a world that refused to break, where even the children learned how to help in the fight, carrying messages, repairing weapons, watching the skies, and warning of enemy patrols. And the aliens began to understand that they were not fighting an army, they were fighting every human who refused to give up, every mother who swore her children would live free, every father who promised to fight until the last breath, every fighter who carried the memories of those who fell, and the promise that Earth would never belong to the invaders. The fortress above the Earth began to crack under the pressure of a war. It was never meant to fight. The alien commanders sent signals across the stars calling for reinforcements from distant worlds, believing that more ships and more weapons would finally silence the human resistance. But as they waited, the humans kept fighting, kept striking with precision and rage, using every second to sabotage the fortress systems, to hack into alien frequencies, and learn the weak points in the massive structure. The humans used stolen codes to redirect supply drops and turn them into traps for alien patrols. They spread false signals that led alien squads into ambushes, where hidden fighters waited in silence in the ruins and the forests, using rifles and explosives to tear apart the invaders piece by piece. Every attack by the aliens was answered by 10 from the humans, who had learned to fight with nothing but will and courage, who had turned the ruins of their cities into a battlefield. The aliens tried to fortify their positions, building heavy barriers and automated turrets, but the humans found ways to bypass them, crawling through old sewer lines, climbing the shattered remains of towers, using shadows and dust storms as cover, striking fast and vanishing before the aliens could react. The fortress above rumbled as its power systems were strained by the constant repairs from human sabotage teams, who slipped aboard using captured shuttles and hidden entry points, moving through the massive ship like ghosts, planting explosives, hacking security systems, turning the fortress into a prison for the invaders. The aliens who once believed they could rule the stars with fear and fire, now found themselves hunted inside their own fortress corridors, echoing with alarms and the footsteps of resistance fighters who refused to back down. The aliens sent their elite guards to hunt the intruders, creatures with blades that hummed with energy and armor that shimmered in the dark. But the humans had studied them, learned their movements and patterns, and struck with traps that crushed them with collapsing doors or flooded their sensors with blinding light. Before finishing them with stolen alien rifles, the humans worked in teams, communicating with gestures, moving with precision and purpose, each member knowing the mission was not just survival but a promise that Earth would never belong to the invaders. They planted explosives near the fortress reactors and power conduits, moving from sector to sector. As alarms screamed and alien guards scrambled to stop them, but the humans kept moving, kept planting charges, kept fighting, even when injured, even when exhausted, because they knew every second mattered. The fortress lights flickered as systems failed one by one, the power drains spreading like a sickness through the alien structure. The aliens tried to regain control, but the humans had learned. Their systems learned how to overload circuits and sever connections, turning the fortress into a maze of dark corridors and burning rooms. The aliens began to panic, sending frantic signals for help as explosions rocked the structure and smoke filled the air, and the humans kept fighting in the darkness, moving toward the final targets with the steady certainty that they would see the dawn of a free Earth. The fortress above Earth shuddered with each explosion as the humans moved deeper into its heart, their boots silent on metal floors, their eyes sharp in the flickering lights of damaged corridors. The aliens tried to seal off sections of the fortress, but the humans had already mapped the ship using stolen data and hacked signals. They moved through maintenance shafts and old cargo tunnels, emerging like shadows to strike and vanish again, leaving alarms and burning circuits in their wake. The aliens sent wave after wave of their elite guards down the dark corridors, hoping to stop the humans before they reached the main reactor. But the humans fought with a fury born from every life, lost every city, burned every promise to reclaim their sky. They used captured rifles and blades made from alien alloys. They used explosives built from stolen power cells. They used the darkness and the chaos to their advantage, striking fast and precise, moving as one, even when the fortress systems tried to isolate them with heavy doors and gas vents. The humans found ways to override the controls with improvised tools and hacked devices made from the scraps of alien tech they had scavenged during every battle. They crawled through vents and broken panels, emerging behind alien squads to strike with silent blades and quick bursts of stolen plasma fire before disappearing back into the shadows. The aliens felt fear for the first time inside their own fortress, hearing the footsteps of fighters who had nothing left to lose, who refused to kneel, who turned every moment of fear into a weapon that pushed them forward. The humans reached the outer perimeter of the reactor chambers, the air hot with the hum of energy, the halls shaking from the wounded engines of the fortress. And they moved carefully, planting charges near the conduits and the stabilizers, watching for alien patrols, who were now frantic, desperate to stop the humans before they could finish the mission. But it was too late. The humans had already made their decision, and each one knew what was at stake. They worked in silence, except for short whispers and hand signals, their eyes meeting in the darkness with the shared understanding that Earth would never belong to the invaders, that freedom was worth any price. The aliens tried to push back with heavy units, firing plasma bolts that scorched the walls and floors, but the humans used the chaos to lure them into traps, setting off explosives that tore through the alien lines, leaving the survivors disoriented and afraid. The humans advanced room by room, moving closer to the core systems as smoke and sparks filled the air. Their hearts steady, their minds focused on the mission. The fortress shook with more explosions as secondary charges detonated across the ship, systems failing, lights going out, alarms screaming as the aliens realized they were losing control of the fortress, that their empire was crumbling. Above the very world they thought they could conquer, the humans reached the final chamber, the reactor core pulsing with bright light and deadly energy, and they began to set the last charges with calm hands and steady breaths, knowing this was the moment they would decide the fate of Earth and the invaders who thought they could rule the stars. The humans stood before the pulsing core of the alien fortress, feeling the heat and the vibration of the reactor that powered the greatest weapon the invaders had brought to Earth. They moved with precision, planting charges on the stabilizers and the coolant lines, knowing that once they were set there would be no turning back. The lights of the fortress flickered as systems failed across the decks. Alarms screamed in alien tones, echoing through the metal halls while the humans worked in silence, each breath measured, each movement careful as they prepared for the final strike. Outside the windows, the burning sky of Earth was visible, lightning storms flashing where the atmosphere had been scarred by the engines of the fortress. But the humans did not look away from their mission. They remembered every fallen comrade, every burning home, every promise they made to the children hiding in underground tunnels, that the sky would be theirs. Again, the aliens were coming. They could hear the heavy footsteps of armored guards and the shriek of orders in alien tongues, telling them to hold the humans back. But it was too late. The charges were armed. The final sequence was ready. The humans took positions around the room, aiming stolen rifles and plasma weapons at the doors as the aliens broke through in a wave of claws and rifles, firing bolts of plasma that turned metal to liquid. But the humans held their ground, firing with calm precision, taking down the invaders as they tried to reach the reactor. Each second they held was a victory, each moment closer to freedom. The humans fought with everything they had, using blades when the aliens came too close, using grenades made from stolen cells to break the lines of the attackers. Even when wounded, they kept fighting, pushing forward to protect the charges and the mission. The aliens roared in anger and fear as they saw the determination in the eyes of the humans, who refused to run, who refused to give up the fight, even with the air filled with smoke and sparks, even with the floor covered in blood and ash. The reactor hummed louder, shaking the entire fortress as the energy built up around the core, and the humans kept fighting until the last moment, until the final countdown began, and the fortress trembled with the weight of what was coming. Some of the humans looked at each other without words, knowing that this was the end, knowing that this was the choice they made, so that Earth could be free, so that the sky would belong to the children again. The aliens tried to retreat, tried to run back through the halls of the fortress, but the humans blocked their path, holding them in the chamber, so they would see the price of invasion, so they would understand that Earth was not theirs to take. The countdown reached the final seconds, and the humans took a final breath, steady and unafraid, as the light of the reactor grew brighter, flooding the room with pure energy, and the fortress above Earth began to shatter as the charges detonated, the light consuming the darkness and the fire consuming the fortress, as the humans made their final stand so that the world would live free under its own sky once more. The fortress above Earth exploded in a silent bloom of light as the reactor detonated, the shockwave rippling through the sky as fragments of alien steel fell burning into the clouds. The pieces of what was once the symbol of alien power rained down like falling stars across the world, while the people who had hidden in tunnels and ruins came out to watch the sky light up. The humans who had fought inside the fortress, had given everything to strike this final blow, and across the world, their sacrifice became a spark in the hearts of every survivor, in every resistance cell, in every child who had seen the sky burning with alien engines, and now saw it burning with the fire of freedom. The aliens who had believed they could rule. The stars now watched from their distant outposts as the fortress they trusted to hold Earth fell apart in the sky. Their commanders, sending panicked signals, trying to understand how their greatest weapon could be destroyed by a species they saw as primitive. The invaders who had once walked with arrogance across the fields and cities of Earth, now moved with fear, looking to the sky as pieces of their empire fell, knowing that the humans had done what no other world had done. They had broken the illusion of alien supremacy, and they had done it with blood, with courage, with the unbreakable promise that they would never bow. The resistance across Earth rose with new strength, emboldened by the fall of the fortress striking at alien outposts, using the confusion to take back weapons, food, and territory. Every act of defiance fueled by the memory of those who fought inside the fortress. Every step forward a promise to the invaders that the fight was not over, that humanity would never be slaves. The aliens tried to regroup, tried to gather their forces for a counterattack, but they found themselves hunted across the forests, across the ruins, across the oceans, by humans who now moved with purpose, using captured technology and hard-earned knowledge to fight smarter, to strike harder, to reclaim every inch of their world. And the children who once hid now learned to help in the fight, carrying messages, building radios, repairing captured rifles, learning that freedom was something worth defending with every breath. And the aliens realized that they had not invaded a weak world. They had invaded a world that would not surrender, that would not forget, that would never stop fighting. The sky above Earth cleared as the smoke of the fallen fortress drifted away, and for the first time in years the stars were visible again. The humans looked up at those stars not with fear, but with the determination that one day they would reach them, not as slaves, not as victims, but as the people of Earth who had earned their place among the stars by standing against the darkness. The aliens who believed they ruled the stars now understood that they had awakened something in humanity, something unbreakable, something eternal, and the world turned its eyes to the dawn, rising over the ruins, not as conquered but as the people of Earth, who would carry the memory of those who fought inside the fortress, who would honor them by living free, by taking back their world piece by piece, breath by breath, until the last invader was gone, and the sky truly belonged to humans. Aga.